Welcome. In this lesson, I'm going to share an easy but effective strategy for the listening section. And the specific question type that we'll be looking at in this lesson is multiple choice. When it comes to multiple choice questions, in the listening section, there are basically two types of multiple choice questions. The first type is very common. It's what most multiple choice questions are like. You have one question and you're to choose one option to go with that question. But in the IELTS exam, there's a second type of multiple choice where you have one question and you have to choose two or three options for the same question. So that's what we're going to look at today, is the strategy that we apply for having more than one option for the same question, but it's a strategy that will come in useful for the other type of multiple choice, and you'll use the exact same strategy for both types of questions. So when it comes to the listening section and multiple choice questions, the first thing that we always do with any type of question, in the listening section, we read and we listen to the instructions. So we read the instructions and make sure we're clear on what we're instructed to do. And then we also listen. And the reason we listen is not only for instructions on how to do the test, but to listen for the context of the recording that we're going to be listening to, so that we know what the recording is about before we start listening. So what we want to do is we want to do two things. We want to underline and mark the questions that we read to make sure that we've seen them, so that we won't be halfway through a set of questions and wonder if we're doing it correctly. We underline it to make sure that we've taken this important step. And then as we listen to the instructions, we make a little note just to remind ourselves of the context, and again, to just be clear in our own minds so that we're not distracted as we go through the listening questions, that we've actually paid attention to the instructions and know exactly the task that we have to achieve. So in this case, I would write down that this recording is a conversation between two people. It's the manager and the guest who's trying to make arrangements for a spa day. And that's the next step that we're going to take, is if we have a title on our set of questions, we're going to underline that, again, to help us with the context, so that before we even start listening, we know a lot about what we have to do here and what we're heading into. So we're listening to a conversation between a manager and guests to arrange a spa day, and we have to choose three letters, which we're going to just circle or mark as we answer right in our notebook, because at the end of the listening section, you do have 10 minutes once the listening is finished to transfer your answers to the answer sheet. So in the listening section, as with every question, you answer right in the booklet as you're taking the test. So underline the title just to have that extra information about the context of what you're going to be listening to. Then we want to do a keyword strategy. Now, in multiple choice, you're going to mark keywords not only in the question, but in your options as well. In this case, because the options are all one word, we don't really need to underline or mark them, but there is a keyword in the question that we're going to want to make sure that we mark, because it gives us the biggest clue for the information that we have to identify and listen for. And that's the word recommended. in the recording, we know it's about a spa day. It's between a manager and a guest. And what is the manager going to recommend that I take to the spa? There might be things that I could take that I don't need to take, or there are things that I could take, but they're not really that important. What I'm focusing on in this recording, is what is the manager recommending? Okay, what is the manager recommending? And you can see that I have 8 options to choose from. But I want to make sure that I understand that the key to this is what the manager is recommending. And so then my next step is I'm going to use a process of elimination. And this is a technique that you can use in multiple choice questions. Sometimes you can't identify or are not sure what the answer is, but you're very clear on answers that are not going to be suitable. So if you eliminate the ones that are not suitable first, it gives you fewer options to have to choose from, and it makes answering the questions easier. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take a quick look at the options that are available to me, and I'm just going to try and predict ahead of time which of these items are unlikely. Which of these items could I probably eliminate because there's not something that I would generally take on a spa day or take to the spa. So if I take a look at some of these items, I'm not going to be able to eliminate some. There are some that are possible, some that are very likely, but there are some that are probably not really necessary or likely to be included or recommended when it comes to going to the spa. So I'm just going to quickly put a little question mark, or even if I want to, I could put a line through them, because these are probably things I don't need to take for my spa day. I probably don't need money. The spa days are usually included in the cost of the hotel I'm staying at, or if I pay up front with my credit card, I don't need to take cash or money into the spa. There's probably not a pocket in my bathing suit where I'm going to put the money. Slippers might be likely. Fruit, and maybe I need a little snack or a towel. I may need a ticket to get in, but I probably don't need my watch. I probably won't be wearing makeup as I go to the spa, and a swimming costume is probably something I will definitely need. So that gives me another hint as I'm beginning to predict what I would take to the spa. But at least for the moment, what I've done is I've now taken my 8 options and limited them to 5, which means it's going to be easier to choose them as I listen to the recording. So this is how we can use the process of elimination. So I've underlined, I've listened and read the instructions. I've marked the title if I've seen a title. I know the context of what I'm going to listen for. I've marked and identified some keywords that will help me know exactly what I'm listening to. And now I've used this process of elimination to eliminate ones that are unlikely and that I probably won't hear as I listen to the recording. The next thing I'm going to do is be aware of some possible synonyms when it comes to the options, because the exact words that I see in my options may not be the exact words that I hear in the recording. I may hear a synonym. So as I look at these options, I also want to take the time that I'm given to identify some possible synonyms for some of these words. And I'll just give you a couple of examples of how this could be. For example, fruit. Well, maybe instead of saying fruit in the recording, they'll actually mention some specific types of fruit. apples, oranges, or bananas. Maybe instead of a swimming costume, a far more common word for swimming costume is bathing suit. So maybe in the recording, I'm going to hear bathing suit and not swimming costume. So what I'm doing is just predicting and preparing ahead of time for what I'm going to be listening for. So one of the things as I'm listening, now that I've predicted and prepared, I'm also going to be aware of how sometimes distractions come up in the recording. And I just want to give you some examples of distractors so that you can be aware of them while you're listening. For example, you might hear something like, I always recommend taking a packed lunch. So that sounds like that's something you would listen for. I recommend taking a packed lunch. But as you continue listening, you hear that word but. But the spa are providing complimentary refreshments for your visits, so you won't need to. So even though packed lunch is always recommended, which is a good distraction when you're listening for what's recommended, it goes on to say, but the spa offers packed lunches, so you don't need to bring them. Or sometimes they will change the information that they've given. The coach will be returning to the hotel at 5:30 p.m. Oh, sorry, we've changed it to 6 o'clock. These are the kinds of distractions to be aware of. I don't usually advise taking any money as everything is included. However, they have a home pamper kit promotion and you might want to treat yourself. So just be aware of listening completely before you choose your answer. Now, one tip that's very important when it comes to distractions and the listening section as a whole, make sure you are patient. Make sure that you don't choose anything until you hear the answer that you know is the correct answer, the answer that you're waiting for. So be patient. Don't panic and try to write something in too soon. Be patient as you listen. But on the other hand, in being patient, as soon as you hear the answer you're listening for, write it down immediately. Do not wait for a better answer because a better answer may never come. When you hear the answer that you're looking for, and you've done all the things that you need to do to predict the correct answer, you've underlined keywords, you've looked at the options, you've eliminated ones that may not be possible, you've considered synonyms and what you could be possibly listening for. Be patient. As soon as you hear the answer you're listening for, write it down immediately and move on to the next question. Don't hesitate. Don't second guess yourself. And this is probably the most important overall tip I can give you for every type of question in the listening exam. When you hear the question, the answer you're listening for, mark it down without hesitating and move on and get ready to answer the next question, because your goal is to get as many correct answers as possible out of the 40 total questions you have in the listening section. You don't lose any answers for wrong or missed questions. So if you miss a question, keep moving forward and just make sure that you don't miss the next one. And that's probably the best tip I can give you for the listening section as a whole. And then you simply answer the questions. And you can practice this exact test that I've shown you the strategy for, the links for the recording, and the link for the questions and the answers and the transcript can be found in the notes for this video. Whenever you practice these listening tests, if possible, I recommend that you you open the file and print it and answer on paper so you can practice answering on paper for test day. So the answers, the recording and the answers are in the notes. And I want to wish you all the best and good luck as you practice multiple choice questions for the listening test in the IELTS exam.